Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.
You came back from the US, so you started your career in the US and
Sure.
other countries. What made you want to come back to India?
So I think the answer to that is what made me go to the US in the first place. As I was saying, I wanted to be in India, and all I wanted to do for 2 years in MBA was get into IIM Ahmedabad, because people made me believe that I would be a great marketing guy or a great sales guy. And so all I wanted to do was get into Hindustan Lever. But for whatever reason, when the Hindustan Lever shortlist came out, I wasn't on it. So I reached out to the Hindustan Lever head of HR at that time. I'll never forget his name, Sumit Salwan. And I said, you haven't put me on, and I think there's a mistake. I've got great acads, I've got great extracurriculars. Everybody believes I should be in HLL. I'm a shoo-in, and you aren't even interviewing me. So he said, no, our process is sacrosanct. We've shortlisted these and we've shortlisted those, and you can't get in. So I said, okay. Around the same time, my closest friend, a girl called Sujata, who works in the US, came back to India, and she told me about this amazing thing, the tech Bullrun. Another of her friends had bought a Ferrari based on his paper stock options that he had pledged. So he had actually bought a Ferrari. So I was like, "Ye sahi cheez hai." So I started applying to, in my last sem, I suddenly started applying to all these US companies, tech companies, and the hottest day zero job after the big banks and the consults was a company called I2 Technologies. So I applied there, and they also didn't shortlist me. So if you go back to the last inside IIM sessions, you'll find a guy called Prashant Mohanraj. Prashant Mohanraj was shortlisted by them. He was ICE Call 7, brilliant guy, also my close friend. So he was shortlisted by them and hired by them. And when they hired him, they said, is there any other good guy? He said, ek aur banda hai, Kenneth Serrao. He's a really good guy. For some reason, nobody's shortlisting him. So they said, call him. So raat ko midnight pe I was called without an interview. So the fact is that I never got through an interview at Ahmedabad. So I got I2 day zero job by sifarish. So they said, acha banda hai, take him. So I went to the US I wanted to be in. The irony on that is that when Hindustan Lever actually came on a day one, there was nobody. There were 4 people left on campus. So now Sumit reached out saying, koi nahi hai, you want to interview? So, there was one of my fingers that I showed him at that point in time and said, nahi, main US ja raha hu. So then I went to the US, and I went there and I was there for 2 years. And then my friend Devashish used to work at Kotak, and Kotak wanted to beef up its team because India had just launched derivatives. So, I said, मैंने कोई finance का course नहीं किया, मेरे को कुछ नहीं आता. He said, किसी को कुछ नहीं आता. Doesn't matter. It's all the whole country starting at zero. But we're putting together this team. Aja. So I quit my job and came back here, and literally got up and came here and joined Kotak at a salary that, in exact rupee conversion, was 1/30th of my salary in the US. But if you could choose a better moment to come to India, that would be it. I entered India at 973 Nifty. Today the Nifty is at 12,000. So if you could choose 10 years to work in finance in India, those would be it. Again, no pretensions at vision. ये वो मेरा best friend था, वो बोल रहा था, तो मैं आ गया. And also in the tech bull run, I had made a lot of money. So we got I2 stock options at $20. A year later, they were at $240. They said, you have 2 options. Either come up with $20 times 1,000 shares, which is $20,000, and take these shares, or sign here and we'll give you $240,000. Obviously you're going to take the latter. So because we didn't have the money, we had spent all the money. Jo bhi tha, gaadi kharidi thi, party kar diya tha, there was no money. So we signed and took that money. And with that money, I bought a house in India. So I said, my dad's worked all his life, bought a house in India, mera wo ho gaya, now I can come back to India and work here. So that was my thought process, and most of my close friends were here. So the most important driver was कि मेरे अच्छे दोस्त तो यहाँ पे हैं, let's have fun here. And that ended up being like a very good time to come back to India. I was with Kotak, which wasn't even a bank at that point in time. It was with Kotak Securities. Again, accidentally. I didn't know how great Uday Kotak was. I'm not making up any stories. That's just the fact. If it wasn't Kotak and my friend had been at ICICI, I would have joined at ICICI. But the fact was that it was a great boss, it was a great team, and we ended up doing some fantastic things together. A year from there, we celebrated 100 crores in assets as a team, right? It was a big deal that a private securities firm had got 100 crores in assets. So it had taken Kotak 4 years to get to 100 crores in assets. It took them 1 year to get to 1,000 crores in assets from there. Today, a city level RM at Kotak has a quarterly target that is 100 crores. That's how much things have exploded, right? And Kotak is arguably not even the #1 wealth firm now. IIFL is probably better. IIFL is the Kotak team, a large part of it went and joined IIFL, etc. But I'm just saying that's how much India has grown. And I think that is the role of serendipity. You know what people say, things will happen to you. And what I've just focused on is in enjoying the moment. If something doesn't make sense, I've left. I've left literally that day. And if something does make sense, then I've continued as long as it has made sense. And then from Kotak, I went to Edelweiss. And again, I was there at Edelweiss for another 5 years. Again, I joined Edelweiss when it was a very small firm, pre-IPO, very small, privately held company, and left when it was 5,000 people. It was like a few hundred people when I joined. I think it was less than 100 people. My employee number was some 100 odd, but some people had left. But left when it was 5,000 people. So I had a great ride along the way.
I think we missed out on that SRK bit. What was that TAG Heuer stint that you did?
So I joined Kotak in a college senior from IIM Ahmedabad, Ravi Thakran. He's a big deal in luxury markets across the world. And he had sponsored the cultural festival when I was cultural secretary, or I had sold him the idea of sponsoring the cultural festival when I was at IIM Ahmedabad. And that's how we built a relationship. And he was starting off, he'd moved from Omega to TAG and was starting TAG in India. So me and another friend of mine became co-heads of TAG Heuer in India. And then we signed on Shah Rukh Khan and launched TAG in India. And I was there for a brief bit. But you know, I had come back to India to join Kotak, as I told you. And I left Kotak for TAG because it sounded really exciting, really alluring. You know, Shah Rukh Khan. We used to manage a watch brand called Dior. So Dior had Yana Gupta, who was far more attraction, you know, than Shah Rukh Khan. And then we had Sushmita Sen, and we had this Perizad Zorabian, and you know, it was like a really nice world. So I went there, and then I realized, you know, I don't fit into this world. So I literally left in 6 months. And also because while that was the top line, at the bottom line, it was about going to dealers and saying, "Paisa do." You know, dealers are selling these watches in cash. They could give you money in cash, but they couldn't give you a check worth. I'd come from Kotak, where picking up a 1 crore check was a joke. यहाँ पे 10 लाख रुपए लोगों के पास check में नहीं होता था. So it just was a world that I didn't fit in. And so I decided to go back to, I went back to Kotak and said, you know, गलती हो गई, sorry. And they were gracious enough to take me back. But yeah, that was the TAG Heuer stint. It was fantastic, it was great. And my friend Manish, he did very, very well. He continues to head, he's currently the head of duty-free shopping in India with LVMH. So it worked for him because maybe, you know, different people find different things that fit them. It didn't work for me.
Also, you, at some point of time, you know, you decided that, and of course, you speak very fondly of your times at Edelweiss as well. But what led you to want to start a company of your own?
So very simply, I think there was this one moment in IIM Ahmedabad which we all remember. A friend, Sumit, at IIM Ahmedabad, who had come with WorkX, once put his hand up and asked Professor Ravi Chandran, another legendary professor at IIM Ahmedabad, and he put his hand up and said, "Sir, what you're teaching us is not going to be relevant in our lives for a very long time, because we're going to go out and take managerial jobs. We're going to be head of marketing, head of product, head of a division, and what you're teaching us is CEO stuff. And a lot of us aren't going to be CEOs." And I'll never forget what Professor Ravi Chandran said. He said, "I hope you haven't come here with the burning desire to be a middle manager at a multinational company." He said, "I hope you come to IIM Ahmedabad with, you know, more ambition than that." And we had Professor Handa and a bunch of fantastic professors. And I think one of the things that they told us, and it's something that at least I took up, was that don't work for a multinational. Because the head of the India business also is an employee. And he's just looking at he's not really looking to build something. He's just looking at his bonus, so, you know, again, you're going to meet a lot of people, like he said, we'll contradict ourselves. So it's different opinions. But I think working for Indian firms is a lot tougher, but a lot more gratifying. So being with Kotak and playing a small part in the magnificent story that Kotak has been, I don't know if you guys follow markets or know what Kotak has done over the last 20 years. But Kotak has become larger than ICICI Bank from a standing start, from zero, right? In every respect. It's more profitable, it's better run, it's got larger market cap. Uday Kotak's gone to being the 8th or 7th richest man in India. And I think that experience is fantastic. And we literally built it with our own hands, every single one of us there. Every single year that we were at Kotak, someone came and made us an offer to double, triple, quadruple our salaries from an MNC. Maybe by adverse selection, some people stayed back. Maybe the brightest left. But the guys who stayed back, whoever stayed back however longer, made that much more. And that's just a simple fact, right? If you're in a great place, never leave it. So I think that was great advice, because I was very clear that I wanted to eventually start something of my own, and hence working in a multinational. And TAG, by the way, was the main reason for that job being very non-gratifying, was that we had a 10 crore budget on advertising to achieve 5 crores of top-line sales. It does not take much maths to figure out how to do that, right? You can pretty much deploy your ad budget through a dealer to achieve your sales target. And there's no challenge in that. At Kotak, for example, when we went to clients and we came back to our bosses and said, you know, Citibank is giving our clients stadium tickets. And our boss would say, you know, you should have a relationship that's strong enough that you should tell your clients, sir, aap to har match ke liye jate ho, mere ko de do. And that's actually what all of us did. We prided ourselves on having fantastic relationships. And relationships aren't built on just chai and pani. We worked very hard for that. We spent a lot of time doing research on stocks, which no other sales guy used to do. Sales guys just say what is told to them. But we had views of our own, we had knowledge of our own, we traded our own money. And that is also part of the reason why eventually I ended up on the buy side. Because I was a lot more ambitious than just wanting to be a sales guy. And I ended up on the buy side, and today I'm part of a 3-man team. All of us used to be at Kotak, and all of us now started a small private equity fund, and we invest into Indian consumer businesses. But the idea was always very clear that we wanted to build our own firm in India, and that clarity was there. And hence Kotak to Edelweiss. Edelweiss also, Rashesh and Venkat, pretty much similar story. Started from scratch, have become billionaires now. And I think that's really inspiring. Whereas, you know, being at multinational corporations is a very different experience.
But what about the BP, like the actual hardcore startup that you built on your own? Because obviously you'd always worked in big organizations, and then from there on to have like a really small space of your own, recruiting people and figuring out the new world. I mean, what was the idea behind BP and how did that come about?
So I think the idea behind BP...
So BP stands for brokerspleaseexcuse.com.
It was a real estate rental startup. Real estate as a space is as large as finance, if not bigger in India. Very simply put, for every rupee that's invested in financial assets, there's probably 10 that's invested in property assets. Rashesh used to say this wonderful thing. He used to say, every building that comes up in Bombay is a 700-800 crore project. Any building that comes up, 5 crores a flat, 40 flats, it's a 1,000 crore project right there. Or a 2,000 crore project, sorry, I'm doing math wrong. And that is the size of an IPO, right? So the money that's made in every building is far more than the money that's made in an IPO in some senses. And that money is made by numerous people, right? So when a building is made, the builder makes money, the contractor makes money. Exactly like when an IPO happens, the founder makes a little bit of money, the bankers make a little bit of money. And then people hold the shares, and people make money holding the shares, and people hold the property, and a large part of wealth in India has come from holding property. Property you get leverage on. You don't get leverage on too many assets as easily. Property you innately want to buy. We're an overcrowded country, cities keep growing. But whatever the reasons, it's not very dissimilar, except that it is a very unorganized market. So the thought there was, maybe the time has come for real estate to get organized, and can we build a company that... And it is a very rich business. So for 5 years, we never needed to raise capital. We hated calling ourselves a startup because startups fundamentally imply that they're looking for a business model. We were very clear what our business model is. So we called ourselves a small business. We grew to having a few offices, a lot of people. And so we ran that for a decent bit. But just that, despite a lot of effort, it never scaled. So eventually, you know, and what also happened was a big real estate crisis. So it's very difficult to build a business when the tailwinds for that business are terrible. So hence we kind of stepped away from it because you could see, although we're still not completely there, but you could see the real estate crisis coming that would really impact the industry. And so that is pretty much what the experience was.
Why do Indian elections fascinate you so much? You once told me that elections and stock markets are two of your favorite hobbies apart from any sport that you follow.
Sure.
So just generally as an aside, why is that so fascinating for you?
So I think elections are the ultimate market. Right? Why markets are fascinating is because nobody controls markets. If people tell you FIS controls markets or Rakesh Jhunjhunwala controls markets or whatever, they're lying to you, point blank. Markets are bigger than anything or anyone. And Indian markets definitely with pretty much all the world's participants there are far larger than, and if you look at it actually, if you plot, just go to Google Finance, take it to max, which is the full length of the screen, and plot, it allows you to plot 3-4 charts against each other, right? So plot Sensex versus Dow Jones versus Hong Kong index versus London index. On a sufficiently big scale, when you're on weekly data, it all looks the same. Every market in the world peaked in 2000, everything crashed in 2008. You will be stunned by how similar they are. So there's one global liquidity that's driving a lot of them. Yes, there is periods of outperformance this year. We may be up 5%, 10%. But overall, markets do well. When markets do well, markets like India have done far better or worse, depending on how things are on the ground. But by and large, Indian market, the point I'm only making is Indian markets are too big to be controlled by any one person. And that is really fascinating because at the ultimate level, it is a chance for you to pit yourself against the world and know every day whether you're right or you're wrong. Right? So every single day, at the end of the day, you know whether you're right or you're wrong. If you're smart, good, etc., you'll make decent money over the long term. And there's no lying. It is a very, very honest place to be. But elections are even more powerful. Markets still, in the end of the day, anyone knows how many DP accounts there are in India or how many mutual fund portfolios, how many people invest in markets in India across our 120, 130 crore people? Anyone has any guess? There are 2 crore accounts, mota moti. Most people who have accounts have multiple because they'll have mom ka account, dad ka account, wife ka account, etc. One literate guy will go and... But that is how nascent the financial market story in India is. Less than 2% of our population, so pretty much there, have actually invested in equity markets. And that is, in general, a reason for us to be extremely bullish long-term on equity markets. Everybody will eventually have to invest. Whether you invest through mutual funds, whether you invest through EPF, PPF, whatever. Finally, there is only cash, debt, and equity. There is no fourth kind of instrument that exists. Everything else in the world is a combination of these 3 things, right? So, pura India FDs karta hai. Mota moti. So a lot will go here. So but at a very basic level, just 2 crore people participate in the markets. Whereas, I think Indian democracy is just fabulous. Nobody has a clue what's going to happen, right? I mean, all of you have, I'm sure, taken up sites and been social media warriors for some party or the other. But it doesn't matter. Your point of view doesn't matter. All you can control is who you vote for. And you will not even be able to tell, even if you come from, a small town in India, you'll not be able to tell who's going to win from that town. And nobody has a clue. People will do what they want to do. And that, I think, is really fantastic because, I also believe that, people who say Indian democracy is in danger and all just are underestimating India. Modi is not bigger than the Mughals. Modi is not bigger than the British, and they couldn't touch this country. So I think we'll take care of ourselves. People say, ye ho jayega, wo jayega, koi problem nahi. We'll take care of ourselves. And I think I would just take that statement. I take a lot of offense to that statement because it's just very demeaning to India. And it's also, I think, blatantly wrong because if Modi was actually, didn't care about democracy, then why does he spend every single moment campaigning, right? The only image of Modi that you have for the last 5 years is that he's been campaigning, which means he does respect the Indian public and he wants to deliver what the public wants. And what the public wants is what we need to figure out how to control. Because the politicians will only give you what the public wants. So if the public wants communalism for whatever reason, then that's what politicians, whether Modi delivers it or Arvind Kejriwal delivers it, doesn't matter. Politicians will deliver what people want. What is important is to figure out what I want, what you want, and how we can influence our friends to ask for the right things. We want jobs. We want progress. We want democracy. And that, I think, is important. So that's why it fascinates me. I think Indian elections are just an amazing exercise.